For 20 years, the Center for Art in Wood has hosted the Windgate ITE International Residency Program. This year, 5 artists, a scholar, and a photojournalist were brought to Philadelphia and given the opportunity and freedom to develop their work, explore new ideas, and learn from one another. I met this year's extraordinary group at their exhibition, AllTURNatives, Form and Spirit 2015. Their approaches to their art vary from quite traditional to cutting edge.
I'm Adrienne Siegel. I'm from Oakland, California.
Adrienne Siegel creates beautiful objects that are based on analysis of scientific data.
All of my work is conceptually based in water, so I use scientific information as a starting point, and I translate that information into forms of data visualization, such as graphs and charts and plots, and I try and take those reference points of information as a 2D graphic element and turn it into a 3-dimensional physical form to make it accessible as a physical object so that your body can experience that information.
I asked her how she found out about the residency.
A friend of mine, Meryl Salin, who is a woodworker, who's also out of Oakland, California, had recommended this fellowship to me. I applied and got in. My background is in furniture design and woodworking. I have a degree from California College of Arts and Crafts.
A California girl, did you grow up surfing? Was this part of your influence?
No, I actually grew up in Colorado, which is very far from the ocean, but definitely in a very beautiful natural setting. And all of the pieces that I make really start with an experience of a natural place. I use a lot of wood, a lot of plywood, but also some metal, and I've done some cast ice pieces, so there's a range of materials. But ultimately, my background in furniture design and my experience with woodworking brought me to this program. I start by working with plasticine clay. I can use my hands in a very intuitive way to make forms. A couple hours and I'll come up with a form that I really like aesthetically and kind of change things and get it to a finished form. I then have a process of scanning that form and creating a digital 3-dimensional model. Once I get the digital model in the computer, I can scale it up, mirror it, I could combine it with other forms. I have a program that will slice it all up into layers and give me the 2-dimensional profiles. Then cut out the profiles out of a sheet good, such as plywood. Stack them all up and glue them in order, and then I have the blank that I can again carve that form out of. There's always some changes in the form, translating from clay to digital and back into physical materials. And I like playing with that, letting the process inform the way that the form ends up. Once it's in plywood, it's all in my hands again, so I use a lot of different grinders, die grinders and burrs, attachments to do all the shaping. Ultimately, it gets down to sanding by hand, and that's how I create the forms.
I'm Rex Kalehoff. I'm from New York City. I have a background in sculpture from University of the Arts in Philadelphia and MFA in furniture design and woodworking from RIT.
I applied for the ITE fellowship 2 years ago, and amazingly I was selected. A year and a half later, wound up here, and the past 2 months we've been visiting collectors, visiting museums, and spending lots of time in the studio creating this work. And here we are at the fruits of our hard work.
A lot of your pieces have animals.
Animals, references to nature. This has to do with my passion and first-hand experience in the wilderness, mainly in Australia, where I discovered my connection to the earth. People from any culture, any background can identify with the animal imagery. And in Australia, I actually studied the endemic plant and animal species. So that research on biodiversity really comes into my work, and I combine that with my fascination with ancient cultures, which stems from the years I spent in Southeast Asia. So I look to the past, I look to the earth, how it responds to the way cultures are living on it today, and results of past civilizations. I want to create work that people will enjoy and laugh at, combining the animals, figures, and objects which serve as symbols, create unexpected works that make people smile. I do large-scale pieces and small-scale pieces. Jewelry, furniture, sculpture, toys, lighting. I feel like I have a library of skills that I tap into, and I utilize what skills are necessary to make whatever I need to make. It wasn't until I went to study furniture design and woodworking where I learned how to use the tools to create anything that was in my head. In one piece, I will do everything from initial milling, joining, planing, squaring up of rough boards, to laminating to create larger blocks that I can carve from. Then I will proceed to table saw, bandsaw to do initial cuts, even a lot of sculpting on the bandsaw. Either hand-cut joinery or routers, mortising machines, engineering the piece to last. And then once I've figured out all the joinery and glued it all together, I can then shape it. A good example of that is the bird in a suit, which demonstrates all of those things I spoke of.
Did you get to know some of the other artists pretty well?
Yes, particularly the international artists, as my work has a lot to do with cross-cultural issues and connecting cultures.
Hi, my name's Grant Vaughan. I'm over here from Australia, enjoying my time in Philadelphia.
All the way from the land down under came Grant Vaughan, a craftsman of the first order.
I started making studio furniture back in Australia. Had no connection with America whatsoever for many years. In '99, I started coming to Chicago with an Australian gallery. I had done some sculptural pieces in Australia previously, but she encouraged me to get into that field a lot more. This is my first residency. It's been quite a new experience for me. I usually work in isolation. I live outside a small country town. Don't usually have a lot of connection with other artists and woodworkers, so this has been a great experience.
How long does one of your pieces typically take?
Anywhere from 2 weeks to 6 weeks, depending on how complicated the piece is. My surfaces and forms are usually extremely smooth and require a tremendous amount of finishing and sanding. The last piece I did was relatively quick because I textured the surface. I was looking to do something a little bit more spontaneous and not so well planned and so controlled as what I usually do.
It's interesting to me, Adrian's technique involves computer modeling. Are you more the traditional carving kind of guy?
Yeah, I guess so. Although in a weird way, I plan my work in the same way. I do full-scale drawings and cross-sections and plans as if you were drawing a house. So it's quite technical in that sense. And then I get a block of wood and I drill holes in to get the forms because I'm not a wood turner. I'm just carving the forms, I want to get them the same as the plans. Drill holes at different depths to get the profiles, which is the same sort of concept as scanning a piece with a computer, really. My computer skills aren't great, and I'm certainly not into what Adrian's into, but it's been really interesting watching her. In a way, if I got myself a little bit more involved with that, could actually help me with what I do, because I often sit down with a calculator and pen and paper and scale things to different sizes and muck around, and I'm sure if I got to the computer I could make that process a lot easier.
Hi, I am Zina, manesa-burloiu. I don't know what I am, a wood carver, a chip carver, but I am a traditional woodworker, I think.
Zina is from Romania and is as good a wood carver as you will ever see.
I learned to carve from my uncle 25 years ago, and then in 1997 I was invited to the World Turning Conference by Albert Lekov.
Being a carver, not a turner, made Zina wonder if this was all a big mistake.
I didn't know that IT would carver also. I thought that it's just wood turners. So I used to say, and I have my joke, I was a mistake in Albert Lekov's life. We got to know each other, we became friends, and my life changed because of him. I started being exposed to other people, artists, especially here in America. We kept in touch, and a few years ago he asked me, what are you doing, how is your work? And I said, you know, I am okay, I'm making a living from my work because by profession I'm an engineer, so I gave that up for my wood carving.
Successful in the marketplace, Zina was feeling constricted aesthetically, always having to make the traditional work she knew would sell.
I said that I would like to change a little bit, but I can't because I have a market for what I am doing now in my country. I cannot afford the time. He said, why don't apply to IT? That's the best place for you to try to do something new. So I applied and here I am. I came a little bit scared. I wasn't sure if it is not too late for me to start doing new things because my work was so traditional. But then I decided I think I'm quite skillful, so I will take my skills, create new things, to dare a little bit more. I will let myself influenced by other people, and this is what I did. So if you look at my work, you see I tried different direction. People think that I'm just a chip carver.
What Zina calls her chip carving is an extremely precise and geometrically pure decorative art applied to the surfaces of objects like spoons and boxes. Her goal with this residency was to embrace a more free-form mode of expression.
This is true, this is what I tried. This is one of the directions I wanted to take to break free with my chips.
These three small pieces are a visual metaphor for Zina's evolving ideas. The first is symmetrical. The decorative motif is classically contained and centered within its frame. The second one has the motif moving far from the center towards the edge in an asymmetric fashion. And the last one shows a progression of motifs culminating in a breaking through of the edge of the form.
Hi, my name is Julia Harrison.
Like Zina, Julia Harrison hoped this fellowship would really help her break through into some new ways of thinking and working.
I'm an artist and an anthropologist, and I live in Seattle, Washington, but I've been here for 2 months, so I feel Philly is another home. I am in my art career primarily a hand carver. I don't have a studio. I work in the second bedroom in our apartment, and I do almost everything with really tiny, totally hand-powered tools. My goal in coming here was to let myself off this self-imposed leash that I've been on for a long time. I figured out how to do a lot of stuff within those limitations, but they are limitations nonetheless. I wanted to learn new skills, new tools. I wanted to do things that were scary for me. I've learned how to use a chainsaw. I have learned how to turn things on the lathe. I built the door over there, which is by far the biggest thing that I have ever made. But I'm still taking my same handworking and applying it to those things. So it's very much an outgrowth of my work. A lot of my work that I've presented in the show here is more sketchy, more playful than the kind of things that I do. I I normally do jewelry, and so it has to be impeccably finished, totally perfect, totally ready to walk out the door. So this is kind of also a pleasure to me to be able to put things on the wall that are just ideas or partially finished. And that's a little nerve-wracking. Do people look at that and say like, oh, she doesn't know what she's doing? But what the hell? What the hell is my attitude for the last 2 months?
The mouths emerging from what is such a dramatically imaginative image, I think it would stop anybody in their tracks.
I've been doing that for a really long time. I've probably in the last 15 years carved at least 100 mouths. I started getting into carving most when I was living in Japan in 2000, and I was working as an English teacher. And I think it was a combination of both seeing a lot of no masks when I would go to museums and using those as my teachers for what I was trying to learn to carve, and also watching people's mouths all the time because I don't speak Japanese very well, so I'd be trying to figure out what is that sound that's coming out of their face and what does it mean. Sometimes people read them as being really sexy or really sad. I'm very happy to let other people interpret things. So that's what I really wanted to try and do, is like pare all that mask stuff down to where you're really getting that emotional essence.
Your drawings of animals are just fantastic.
Thank you. I shouldn't laugh at this, but it seems like everybody is always like, oh, you think wood turning is cool, you should turn a pen. Instead of turning pens, I turned wooden brushes, and then I turned those brushes into fountain pens. Those drawings are examples of what you can do with the brush pens that I turned on the lathe.
My name is Seth Brueggemann. I'm a history professor at Temple University, where I run the Center for Public History. I've been this year's ITE scholar, so my job has been to meet the artists, think about their work, and attempt to put it into some broader context. It's been a really fun experience, and I've been astonished by their variety of approaches and their insights into the meaning of their work and how it relates to their audiences, and it's been a wonderful learning experience for me.
Seth's writing about these artists is erudite, illuminating, and meticulously researched, but I had a less intellectual concern. All right, now I have to ask a question that my more lowbrow audience members might be interested in. Were there any ITE romances or anything of that nature that you'd like to talk about?
I was here for a week in residency, so if there are any, they happen before or after me.
So no marriages, no children?
I know of none. A few months out, maybe we'll find something different.
In all seriousness, they seem to really get a lot from each other. You look at the show and there are all these collaborations. It's just a wonderful thing.
They work so closely in a small space for a long period of time. The nature of the experience and the place, the energy of the group and the city really promoted some wonderful collaborations.
Can you tell me the nuts and bolts of daily life for the residents?
Yeah, well, we're all staying in the same building. We're all a little bit different in our work habits. I'm more an early morning person. I've been over at the workshop several hours before anyone ever gets there, and I'm usually the first to leave. But some of them really are night owls. We've all been working pretty hard, so we've occasionally had some dinners together, but it's been pretty intense trying to get work finished, because the first few weeks we were here, well, we had a week at Bucks County, and then we went to Washington, and it took us about 3 weeks to really get going. Then it was sort of panic station.
I love the collaborations you did with Zena.
Yes, we definitely got on well, and we came up with tons of ideas, communicated a lot about our work, and worked side by side a lot, and influenced each other's ideas a lot.
I like his mind. He has a crazy imagination, I think, like an artist.
We feel we have a really strong direction together that wouldn't be so if we hadn't met.
We are completely in contrast, or we used to be before I came to IT, because I was so geometrical and so precise, and he's so crazy in his thinking.
And we'd really love to continue working together through mailing pieces back and forth in the future, since we're so far away.
We can mix our mind and see what happens.
Zena also collaborated with Adrian.
I am very happy breaking free with Adrian.
With Zena, we did a very nice collaborative piece together where we worked to make both the form and the carving talk to each other.
Adrian's pattern drawings served as a template for Zena's wonderful carving of wood blocks.
With both Adrian and Rex, I hope it's just the start for the rest of our life. We all collaborate.
What was your relationship with the other artists?
As my peers, sharing ideas, problem solving different ideas, and also observing how each other works. With Julia, it was getting to film her carve her lips and see how much detail and patience she has. Seeing Grant and the way that he's able to maintain a very crisp, detailed, thin line in some of his forms is really inspiring. And to see how someone creates those forms makes you think about your own approach in a different way.
I think I will go home with a lot of seeds for my next work in the future.
I'm definitely going home with some amazing friends. I'm going home having learned some incredible lessons from people that weren't here specifically to be my teachers, but yet were. And I hope that some of them have also learned things from me that they'll keep doing. And I think the real proof of those relationships will be what comes next, not what's happened in the past 2 months, but what comes next.
My name is Winifred Helton-Harmon, and I come from Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, and I was the ITE photojournalist.
I want to give a particular shout out to Winnie, whose magnificent still photographs added immeasurably to this film. You took a ton of photos, you said?
2,500, then that was edited.
Oh my goodness. And I have access to all of them from my video?
Oh, sure, John.
The ITE experience was nothing that I could have imagined before I arrived. It gave me the most time to spend creating pieces that I had never imagined that I would be able to make. I was completely joyous in the fact that I got to photograph and document people's lives and creative processes every single day, and I have to think creatively on every one of those shots.
How did you get this grouping of wood chips?
I asked the fellows to save all their wood chips from all their carving over the course of the 8 weeks. So in about 6 weeks, I had this huge collection that I had to put into a separate garbage can and label, "Do not throw away." And then I compiled them and put them into the pile that you see today.
Did you go individually, chip by chip, selecting only the best ones?
No, but I did strain it so that all the beautiful, most precious chips and carved pieces came out.
There you go. Thank you very much. Winnie also created a video piece highlighting the sounds of the woodworkers as they constructed their artworks. AllTURNatives Form and Spirit 2015 will be on display through September 26th at the Center for Art in Wood. I gotta ask you this, have you ever carved a boomerang?
I guess I have, probably. Just mucking around with my son. Yeah, played around as a kid, actually. Used to try and make our own boomerangs, but...
Ever bonk a kangaroo with one?
No.
Yeah, I guess although I was